Friends, let's get straight to the heart of Benjamin Netanyahu's most recent statement. He publicly stated that President Donald Trump is indeed seeking a ceasefire agreement with Iran to end the current conflict. However, Netanyahu made it clear that Israel will continue its military operations against Iran. This agreement, according to him, is a U.S. initiative, but it does not prevent Israel from continuing its attacks, extending them to Lebanon as well, with a concrete plan to annex the southern region of Lebanon, something that has been getting closer and closer to reality on the ground. From a neutral geopolitical point of view, this reveals a complex dynamic between Washington and Tel Aviv. The United States appears as a diplomatic mediator, while Israel prioritizes strategic national security objectives. For the American audience following us, it is important to understand that this stance could affect the U.S.'s position as a global power, especially since the Middle East is vital for the flow of energy and the stability of regional alliances. Netanyahu presented this as a balanced strategy, seeking negotiated peace on the American side, but maintaining Israeli military pressure to ensure concrete results. There is no room here for emotional interpretations. We are talking about facts stated in an official pronouncement. This approach reflects years of accumulated tension, where previous ceasefires failed due to a lack of mutual trust. On the Israeli side, the continuation of the attacks is justified as a defense against perceived threats from Iran and allied groups in Lebanon. For us in the United States, this raises questions about the level of coordination between the Trump and Netanyahu administrations. Is there total alignment, or are there tactical divergences? Looking coldly, the annexation plan in southern Lebanon is not new, but it has gained recent momentum due to increased border clashes. This could alter regional maps and impact the balance of power, with possible repercussions in broader negotiations involving Saudi Arabia, the Emirates, and other Gulf actors. My friends, what we see here is a mix of diplomacy and brute force, typical of realistic geopolitics. Israel is signaling that it will not back down from its objectives, even with Trump acting as a facilitator. This duality demands that we closely observe the coming days, as any escalation could push the U.S. into a more active role, whether in logistical support or diplomatic pressure. Without skipping details, Netanyahu reinforced that a ceasefire would be beneficial, but contingent on achieving military objectives. For our American audience, this serves as a reminder that international alliances don't always proceed in a straight line. We are talking about a multifaceted war involving not only missiles and troops, but also political narratives that reach all the way to Capitol Hill. Let's continue monitoring as updates emerge hourly. We analyze Trump's initial position on the possible agreement and Iran's immediate response. Trump had publicly stated that he was working on a ceasefire with Iran, something he presented as a concrete step towards ending hostilities. However, Iran categorically denied any ongoing negotiations. In an official statement released earlier today, Tehran stated that there is no mutual agreement underway because the conditions have not been met. Iran argues that, after suffering direct attacks, it would only accept a lasting ceasefire if the aggressors were clearly punished. This response reflects a firm stance of sovereignty. You attacked us, now you need to go all the way. From a neutral geopolitical point of view, this exposes a classic asymmetry in asymmetric conflicts. A superpower like the U.S. attempts mediation, while Iran demands recognition of damages and reparations. For those of you who follow the channel in the United States, this has direct implications for the credibility of American diplomacy. If Iran rejects the agreement as non-mutual, it may force Washington to recalibrate its strategy, avoiding appearing unilateral. The Iranian denial came shortly after Trump's announcement, highlighting that Tehran sees no value in partial negotiations. Analyzing the facts without bias, Iran reiterates that it will only negotiate if those responsible are punished, foreign bases are withdrawn, and regional partnerships are ended. This is the second time in a short period that Iran has publicly denied advances announced by Washington or Tel Aviv. Geopolitically, this reinforces the Iranian narrative of resistance to external interventions, something that resonates throughout the Gulf region. For the American public, it is worth remembering that the United States maintains a significant military presence in the Middle East, bases that Iran now cites as a central obstacle. We are not skipping anything. Trump gave a 5-day deadline for progress, but the Iranian denial indicates that time is running out without real progress. This exchange of statements creates a vacuum that could lead to further escalation, affecting oil prices and global trade routes that directly impact the U.S. economy. As an independent analyst, I see this as a test of Trump's strategic patience. He seeks a quick solution, but Iran is imposing harsh conditions that demand real concessions. My friends, this is not mere rhetoric. It is real-time geopolitics, where every word can alter the calculation of military risks. Note that Iran has maintained consistency since the beginning of the conflict, adhering to its hard line. For us in the United States, the question remains, how long can Washington sustain this mediation without results? Last-minute updates show that the tension has not decreased. On the contrary, we remain firm in our neutral analysis so that you have complete clarity. Now, we enter the explicit conditions imposed by Iran and the perception that Trump may be seeking a way out. Iran demands that the aggressors acknowledge defeat, withdraw all American bases from the region, end partnerships with Saudi Arabia, Qatar, the United Arab Emirates, and other Gulf countries, permanently evacuate these facilities, and pay reparations for the damage caused. Without this, no negotiation is possible. Tehran claims to have kept its word since before the conflict broke out, contrasting with the view that Washington and Tel Aviv do not honor commitments. Trump, in turn, mentioned a 5-day deadline, which, according to neutral analysts, indicates an attempt to create a narrative of diplomatic progress. Geopolitically, this puts the U.S. in a delicate position. The president seeks to end the war, but the Iranian demands touch on pillars of the American strategy in the Middle East, such as military presence and security alliances. For our audience in the United States, it's crucial to understand that these bases are not merely logistical. They represent a projection of power that guarantees the flow of oil and the containment of rival influences. Iran is not backing down. It wants clear punishment and financial reparations. From a neutral standpoint, Trump appears to be trying to find an honorable way out, but the Iranian denial suggests he may be exaggerating public optimism. Without skipping any details, Iran reiterates that it will only accept a lasting ceasefire with full accountability. This echoes past conflicts where mediations failed due to a lack of trust. For the Americans watching, this dynamic directly affects the domestic debate about military spending and foreign engagement. As an independent commentator, I note that Netanyahu entered the scene soon after, confirming a phone conversation with Trump. The overall picture is one of stalemate, American diplomacy versus Iranian intransigence. My friends, this could have consequences for global supply chains and the stability of energy markets that you feel at the gas station. Iran's firmness from the beginning of the conflict demonstrates long-term strategic planning. Trump, on the other hand, needs to balance campaign promises with reality on the ground. Looking at it objectively, the perceived lie about the agreement creates diplomatic noise that weakens the U.S. position as a reliable arbiter. We continue to provide breaking updates because the scenario changes rapidly. Any new pronouncement could alter everything. For you, the lesson is clear. Geopolitics is not linear. It requires constant vigilance. We focus on the recent phone conversation between Netanyahu and Trump and the decision to continue the attacks. Netanyahu confirmed the dialogue, describing Trump as "my friend who seeks a ceasefire that is good for Israel." However, he emphasized that Israel will proceed with its objectives. Attacks on Iran and Hezbollah in southern Lebanon, claiming to be achieving strategic goals. Meanwhile, Israeli Finance Minister Bezalel Smotrich declared that it is necessary to redraw the map of Israel incorporating southern Lebanon, with the new border defined by the Litani River. This public statement reinforces a policy of territorial expansion. Neutrally, from a geopolitical point of view, this shows that Israel does not see the ceasefire as an immediate break on operations. For the American public, it is relevant to note that this telephone coordination occurs at a time of high tension, where the U.S. acts as a mediator, but Israel maintains military autonomy. Netanyahu ignored the Iranian denial and continued with the narrative of achieved objectives, despite independent reports indicating difficulties on the ground. Smotrich was emphatic. The new Israeli border must be the Litani River. This is not isolated rhetoric. It is part of internal discussions in all rooms of the Israeli government. Without skipping anything, the picture reveals a duality. Trump seeks an agreement. Israel seeks military victory. Geopolitically, Southern Lebanon is strategic due to its proximity, water resources, and position against Hezbollah, an ally of Iran. For us in the United States, this raises questions about the cost of supporting Israel in terms of international image and resources. The continuation of attacks, even during negotiations, is a classic tactic of maximum pressure. My friends, as an independent analyst, I see here a risk of prolonging the conflict, with possible spillover to other borders. Hezbollah, in turn, responds with more intense fire, which Israel did not fully anticipate. Breaking updates confirm that ground operations in Lebanon are progressing, with reports of over 1,000 civilian and military deaths in the region. This requires us to observe the balance of power. Israel is gaining ground locally, but faces regional resistance. For our channel, neutrality is law. We present the facts as stated, without moral judgment. Subscribe if you want more analysis like this. The map redrawing proposed by Smotrich permanently alters the regional equation. Let's stay focused. The next topic delves deeper into the map. Let's look at the map and a concrete explanation of the annexation plan. The Litani River, which originates in northern Lebanon and flows south near the border with Israel, would be the new dividing line proposed by Smotrich. The river is long but narrow, vital for supplying Beirut and southern Lebanon, visualizing the territory. Present-day Israel has a yellow border with Lebanon. The Litani would cut through the south of the country, incorporating a significant strip into the Israeli state. Israel has been carrying out attacks in Lebanon for years, intensified after the previous ceasefire, which, according to reports, was not fully respected. With Hezbollah launching stronger attacks, supported by Iran, Israel has increased operations, including ground incursions for annexation. More than 1,000 deaths have been recorded in Lebanon in this process. Neutrally, this represents real-time territorial change, with global concern expressed by leaders like Macron, who proposed European mediation that was ignored by Israel. For the American public, geographical proximity facilitates a ground invasion, unlike attacks on Iran. Geopolitically, southern Lebanon offers strategic depth against missiles and armed groups. Without skipping details, Israel has been attacking since the conflict in Gaza, using the moment to advance into Lebanon. The Litani River is not wide, but its riparian forest is visible. The plan would encompass the entire southern region up to that line. This alters regional hydrography and resource control. My friends in the United States note that this could affect trade routes and the stability of the eastern Mediterranean, areas of American interest. Hezbollah's resistance surprised Israel, which is now using ground superiority. As an independent commentator, I present the facts. An ongoing invasion for annexation with a high human cost. Macron attempted mediation, but Israel is moving forward. This is breaking news that requires constant monitoring. Maps are being redrawn on the ground. For you, this means a possible realignment of forces in the region, with an impact on global energy security. We remain neutral and firm. The plan is explicit and declared. Friends, let's contextualize the invasion of Lebanon and Israel's broader vision of regional hegemony. European leaders have expressed concern, but Israel ignores mediations and advances by land, taking advantage of its border proximity. It cannot completely massacre Iran, but it is more successful against Hezbollah due to the shared border. Many viewers question Israel's historical colonialist character in the Middle East, something openly discussed in geopolitical analyses. The current war aims at hegemony. Israel seeks to expand territory and influence with strategic, not sentimental, alliances with Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and the Emirates. Settlements in the West Bank and actions in Gaza are part of this pattern of territorial expansion. The main obstacle is Iran, which demonstrates strength and resists Israeli dominance. Neutrally, the conflict is one of power. Iran blocks expansion, while Israel uses American alliances to advance. For our audience in the United States, this directly affects Washington's role as an ally. Trump is seen as having been persuaded by Netanyahu to support the effort. Without skipping any steps, Israel doesn't consider these countries friends, but partners against Iran. The central idea is to expand its territory to guarantee security. Geopolitically, this explains simultaneous attacks on Iran and Lebanon. My friends, war is not just defense, it's a projection of influence. Last-minute updates show that the hegemony plan remains active. As an independent analyst, I present facts without bias. Iranian and Lebanese resistance prevents total domination. This has a high cost and could prolong instability. For you in the U.S., it's worth reflecting on American investment in this dynamic. We continue with the next topic on Greater Israel. Friends, in the seventh topic, we address the historical discussion of Greater Israel. Many question whether there is a connection to 19th century Zionism and the biblical Promised Land. From a neutral point of view, the concept varies, but broad outlines include present-day Israel, plus eastward expansion, the West Bank, Gaza, the Jordan River as a border, extending to the Euphrates River in Iraq, ancient Mesopotamia. The Jordan River, with its visible riparian forest, separates Israel from Jordan. The Euphrates, coming from Syria, would mark the eastern limit. This would involve parts of Jordan, Syria, Saudi Arabia, and Lebanon. Geopolitically, this is not Netanyahu's immediate plan, but a long-term vision for hegemony with American support. The Tigris and Euphrates are historical rivers of irrigation and survival in the region. For the American public, this explains deeper motivations beyond immediate security. Without skipping details, political Zionism seeks a territory larger than the current one. Maps show extensive annexation, altering the entire Middle East. My friends, historians cite ancient Mesopotamian societies. This is not speculation. It's open debate in Israel. As an independent commentator, I present the context without endorsement. Biblical and political perspectives overlap in some narratives. Updates showed that the current focus is southern Lebanon, but Greater Israel remains in the background. Impact for the U.S., possible realignment of regional alliances. We remain steadfast in our neutrality. Friends, we conclude with general motivations and implications. Israel sees Iran and Hezbollah as central barriers to hegemony. Netanyahu convinced Trump, who, according to Tehran, shares the blame, that the war is a Zionist plan for regional dominance. Iran claims, "This war is not ours. We were attacked without threat." Alliances with the Gulf are strategic, but long-term plans include possible expansions. Capital and security speak louder today. I invite your contributions on Greater Israel, including biblical contexts. For the American public, this affects Trump's foreign policy and energy security. Neutrally, the conflict is a plan for hegemony with a human cost. My friends, last-minute updates show a persistent stalemate. Thank you for following. Subscribe for more. Big hug, and until the next analysis.